If Levi's were only ever going to recreate one item, it should be this. The first riveted jean from the year that's stamped on every item they've ever made. This is the 1873 jean review episode. 50,000 BC, needle and thread. 1300 BC, the first pair of pants. 1870, riveted denim jeans. This isn't a channel for Levi's amateurs, so you are probably familiar with some of the basics, but here's a quick recap. 1853, and Levi Strauss has opened his San Francisco dry goods business selling fabric wholesale to tailors. 1872, Jacob Davis, a tailor and customer of Levi, writes Levi a letter asking him to help with a patent for his riveted pants. The next year, Levi's jeans were on sale. Every year sales increased and the company grew, selling what they are so famous for making. The credit for putting rivets in pants goes to Jacob Davis. The unexpectedly long wait to obtain the patent came because the U.S. Patent Office thought the U.S. Army held the first riveted shoe. However, this was fought until the 20th day of May 1873 when the Patent Office finally released patent number 139121. The patent for fastening pocket openings. Here's the moment where I beg you to subscribe. As a small channel, you really do have the power to help small channels like mine grow and make better videos with more visually entertaining content that reaches an audience that really wants to watch these videos and would appreciate them. I appreciate every view, every comment, every subscriber. Thanks to all of you guys. Share this channel with someone you think would like it too. Now on with the video. So if you get a historic pair of 501s, you'll receive a letter in the back pocket from Levi's describing the historical time and I love reading them on this channel. But for this pair of jeans, we have 4 letters. Which one to read? Well, you know what? It's a special day, so why not read all of them? I've got the 1872 letter from Jacob Davis to Levi. I've got the patent, the LVC letter from the number ones, and from the catalog describing the miners' items. Mr. Levi Strauss & Company. Gents, enclosed, please find check for $350, for which please give me credit balance, my account, and write me how much there is left in my credit. Deduct $4 for the plush and thread which I have sent back. The reason I send you so much money is because I have no use for it here, and you may allow me interest as well as the bank. I also send you by express 2 pieces of overall, as you will see, 1 blue and 1 made from the 10-ounce duck which I have bought a great many pieces of you, and have made it up to the pants. Such is the sample. The secret of them pants is the rivets I put in those pockets, and I have found the demand so large that I cannot make them fast enough. I charge for the duck $3 and the blue $2.50 a pair. My neighbors are getting jealous of these successes, and unless I secure it by patent papers, it will soon become to be a great general thing. Everybody will make them up, and there will be no money in it. Therefore, gentlemen, I wish to make you a proposition that you should take out the latter's patent in my name, as I am the inventor of it, and the expense of it will be about $68. All complete, and for the $68 I will give you half the right to sell all such clothing riveted according to the patent. For all the Pacific states and territories, the balance of the United States and the Pacific coast, I reserve for myself. The investment for you is but a trifle compared with the improvement in all coarse clothing. I use it in all blanket clothing such as coats, vests, and pants. You will find it a very sellable article and at a much advanced rate. Should you decline to spend the money required for the patent papers, please write to me and I will take them out at my own expense. Under all circumstances, please don't show the pants to anybody. I have already obtained through Dewey & Company of the Central Pacific 2 patents, and 1 was rejected. But I am so situated with a large family that I cannot do anything with it at the present. Therefore, as I have said, if you wish to take out the papers, please go to Dewey & Company of the Central Pacific and have the papers made out in my name for 17 years. They will send them up for my signature. Please answer there as soon as possible. These look like a trifle hardly worth speaking of, but nevertheless I knew I could make it up in the pants. The way I do, I can sell duck pants such as the sample, $30 per dozen, and they will be ready retail for $3 a pair. Excuse these long latter, as I could not describe particulars in a short space. I have nothing more at present. I remain yours truly, J.W. Davis. United States Patent Office. Jacob W. Davis of Reno, Nevada, a signer to himself, and Levi Strauss & Company of San Francisco, California. Improvement in fastening pocket openings. August 9th, 1872. Application filed. Dated May 20, 1873. Be it known that I, Jacob W. Davis of Reno, County of Washoe and State of Nevada, have invented an improvement in fastening seams, and I do hereby declare the following description and accompanying drawing are sufficient to enable any person skilled in the art or science to which it most nearly appertains to make and use my said invention or improvement without further invention or experiment. My invention relates to a fastening for pocket openings, whereby the sewn seams are prevented from ripping or starting from frequent pressure or strain thereon, and it consists in the employment of a metal rivet or eyelet at each edge of the pocket opening to prevent the ripping of the seam at those points. The rivet or eyelet is so fastened in the seam as to bind the two parts of cloth which the seams unite together, so that it shall prevent the strain or pressure from coming upon the thread with which the seam is sewn. In order to more fully illustrate and explain my invention, reference is had to the accompanying drawing, in which my invention is represented as applied to the pockets of a pair of pants. Figure 1 is a view of my invention applied to the pants. A is the side of the seam in a pair of pants, drawers, or other articles of wearing apparel, which terminates at the pockets, and B represents the rivets at each edge of the pocket opening. The seams are usually ripped and started by the placing of the hands in the pockets and the consequent pressure or strain upon them. To strengthen this part, I employ a rivet, eyelet, or other equivalent metal stud, B, which I pass through a hole at the end of the seam, so as to bind the two parts of cloth together, and then head it down upon both sides so as to firmly unite the two parts. When rivets, which already have one head, are used, it is only necessary to head the opposite end, and a washer can be interposed, if desired, in the usual way. By this means I avoid a large amount of trouble in mending portions of seams which are subjugated to constant strain. I am aware that rivets have been used for securing seams in shoes, as shown in the patent of George Houghton, number 64015, April 23, 1867, and to L.K. Washburn, number 123313, January 30th, 1872. And I hence do not claim broadly fastening of seams by means of rivets. Having thus described my invention, what I claim as new and desire to secure by letter patent is, as a new article of manufacture, a pair of pantaloons which have the pocket opening secured at each end by means of rivets, substantially in the manner described and shown, whereby the seams at the points named are prevented from ripping and set forth. In witness hereof, I hereunto set my hand and seal, Jacob W. Davis and Levi Strauss. The number ones. Spring-Summer 2013. Levi's vintage clothing is replacing one of the oldest pair of jeans in the world. The original garment, which dates back to the first of the riveted jeans in 1873, was preserved in the silent darkness of a mine shaft for over a century and a quarter. This priceless artifact is the only one of its kind and reveals much about the origins of the modern iconic garment. Every detail of the Levi's vintage clothing, first riveted blue jeans, has been painstakingly attended in order to accurately recreate the original. It is made of 9-ounce 2x1 selvedge denim that has been reproduced using scroll from the original jean. Our early garments were kept simple. We have seen many examples of pleats appearing in the yoke, suggesting that there was not a specific pattern made for each size, but just the waistband measurement would differ, creating pleats in the back yoke, which meant the smaller the waist, the bigger the pleats. One of the reasons we know these jeans are from 1873 is because of the large size of the watch pocket, which became considerably smaller from 1874 onwards. Another interesting stitch detail is that in the riser seam, where the double stitching at the crotch tapers back into a single stitch. Everything is raw cut and single stitched except for the buttonholes, which have been sewn by hand. The pocket bags are made from the same 2x1 fabric, and like the other Levi's jeans from the era, it has 4 pockets, copper rivets, and a center back. And the denim patch does not have an arcuate on the back that would later adorn all Levi's brand jeans. The riveted jean began as a durable design for the hardworking men of the American West, best personified by the lone miner of California. Duck and denim fabrics were clamped at each stress point by a small copper metal rivet, which helped protect these men both above and below ground. We're very lucky that we can still discover Levi's riveted clothing in abandoned mines, some of which has not seen the light of day since the 1870s. These original, worn out and distressed garments, covered in dirt and candle wax, fetch extremely high prices to collectors of vintage denim. They also help us learn how the jean evolved over time. This spring, LVC for the first time celebrates its beginnings and pays tribute to the miner with a small collection of essential clothing presented as though it was unearthed from a forgotten mine. What do we call these pair of jeans, these 1873 first blue jeans? We can't call them the 501s yet, as those were not officially released until 1890 within the company 1886. But this lot number is a 125. The 125 is what we can call the 1873 blue jeans all the way through the 1870s and 80s before it becomes the 501. Why do we pick 125? Well, the last 3 digits of the patent number are 121, so that became the duck pants. You want a pair of 121s? That's the duck 1873s. You want a pair of them in denim? You want a pair of them in blue Amaschia XX denim? That is the 125. In theory, these should have every historical feature, but in reality, the details of the 1873 jean will vary amongst the different years of reproduction. I'm reviewing the 1999 model. We can see from around that time that there are notes that the oldest pair of Levi's jeans to have been found were from the 1890s. And so the 1873 model from 1998 is based on this calico version, sometime in the early 1890s. They took the details mix that with what they knew from the Smithsonian pair of duck pants, and this is what we get. Years later, they found the double X pair, which is a pair of 1879 jeans. They've also found pairs in between then from 1880s, Nevadas, Napavs, so we can work backwards with these details. However, they decided to go more for a wearable pair than a truly historic. All of these details, whether they're similar, they are going to be changed in some way. We start out with 9-ounce white selvage denim. It's lighter than the eventual 12-ounce that it would become, and the white selvage refers to the inside selvage line being blue and then having a white line on it. Eventually that will be replaced with red line selvage for Levi's and pink for the women's line. We have one back pocket with a single needle arcuate stitching. This single back pocket was the first thing to be changed and have two back pockets. We can still see this arcuate there today. This arcuate stitching was originally done with a single needle to make it look like either a bird soaring in the sky or some type of visual arch that's just there for an aesthetic reason. Whether it was Jacob or Levi that came up with this idea of putting it on there, I've read conflicting stories. But pretty much one of them just came up with it right then, sewed it on, and now we still have this. It's the oldest trademark that's still enforced and has to be enforced every year because companies are stealing it. But Levi's now uses double needle arcuate stitching, which crosses, so you have this little triangle instead of what looks like a bird originally. There are exposed rivets on the back pockets. These will be eventually covered up in 1937 and then replaced by bar tacks in 1966. Exposed rivets still appear on the front as that is one of their signature traits. And you can still see an exposed rivet in the crotch. The crotch rivet is a point of strain, so it's good to have the rivet on that point of strain where it will keep it stronger. They eventually removed it. One idea being that they were just changing with the times. The other, they took it off during World War II to save on copper because that made bullets in the war. The other legendary reason is that if you are freeballing and if you're freeballing and squatting next to a campfire, that metal rivet gets red hot and burns you down there. It'd be a good episode to try that out one time. Now, if you look at the rivets, they will have a patent May 1873 stamped on them, in addition to the LFC & Co. SF. Ever since 1890, they've been replaced with just saying LS & Co. SF, and they took away the patent May 1873. You'll also find suspender buttons on there. These recreated 1873 pairs will come with shank suspender buttons, as well as the shank button fly. Duck pants will come with sewn-on buttons, as will the Napav jeans. And this becomes a whole thing that we can get into what they originally had versus what we have in record. And the same thing, if we look at the cinch, we see that the modern 1873 recreation, at least the 1999 version, has a slide cinch. This is very functional to use. I love it because I can actually use it and I don't worry about it breaking over time. Otherwise, it should historically have a poke cinch, and you would have to bend it and reforge it over time. Whether that was a strong wrought iron or something more delicate, we're just unsure of. They don't last. And the final we can talk about is the button fly. Having a button fly is just a more historic way than a zipper. Zippers were not invented yet. Like the button fly, whether they were with sewn-on buttons, they're in shank button form in the recreations, and that just makes it easier to use, more wearable. Sewn-on buttons tend to fall off, and when you re-sew them on, you can't get it as secure as they were. It's either too tight or too loose. So how do they fit? How does a 150-year-old cut feel on a modern body? Well, before we get into that, an interesting story. This is known as the Davis cut, and the company was very strict behind keeping somewhat of this similar cut throughout the evolution of the Proto 501s, the 121s, 125s, and then keeping it within the 501, even though we see variations of it evolving for the next 150 years. But there is this intriguing mystery behind it. In December 1870, a woman visits the Davis tailor shop asking for a pair of pants for her husband that won't rip at the pocket seam. Davis needs the man's measurements to make this pair of pants, but the wife keeps giving him these excuses for why he can't come into the shop, like he's sick, he has something called the dropsies, he can't take off work, they're so broke, it's so far away. And so anyways, Davis goes, you know what, let me do the next best thing. Go home, take some string, measure, and tie some knots on those pieces of string so he has something to work with. Why didn't the husband come in? Maybe he was a wanted criminal. It was the Wild West. But it's obvious to any 501 fan that this was divine intervention, sending us the measurements of God. The waist sits right at the navel. You can put that top button fly button right at the belly button. There's a slight widening from the hips to the thighs and down the leg, carrying down straight to the ankle. This pair feels like a nice boot cut for me. If I were going to compare it to one of the other LVC pairs, I would say something close to the 1920s, where it has a ballooning in the upper thigh, but not as much. It feels a little different from the 1890, a little slightly roomier, but a straight cut. But these are both very straight cuts. Remember that rigid pairs will shrink about 2.5 sizes, so seriously, they lose a lot. Upsize about 3 sizes because you want to use the cinch and have a little room for suspenders. So when LVC first started to make these, or even the proto LVC, they made them historically inaccurate with a 2-horse patch and a flasher, items that wouldn't come on for another items that wouldn't be available for decades to come. This is about 1997, 1998, and what they're calling 125th anniversary. Luckily, by the next year, the 1999 versions, they had the original Levi Strauss and Company patented duck and denim leather patch on there. So you get a semi-historically accurate pair in the late 90s, and then we jump forward to about 2007. Then we jump to 2007, where there is a rigid dead stock, and also a distressed. You will find a 2008 Barnstormer, which is faded and has these large vertical patches. Also crotch refitted. 2013, there is a pair called the Number Ones, assuming that means it's the first blue jean of all time. But honestly, it looks like it's copying details from the Nevada 1880s pairs. You can see that the Levi's patch is in the center rather than being on the right side. We know this moves from the right side in the 1870s to the center in the 1880s, and then back to the right side for the remainder until now. Except if you get the mirrored pairs, then it's on the left. We also have a pair of shorts for women, customized. 1873 shorts for women. There is a limited edition, but you can see it still has shank buttons. It's out of 370 pairs. Nothing else really special. Comes in a rigid. But I would say the creme de la creme for the 1873 jean, if you can find it, the best pair they've ever made, the most historically accurate, is this one that actually has no arcuate on it. Has the patch in the center still, but it has the sewn-on buttons. Now, they've never done a truly historically accurate pair of these, and they haven't done it in about 10 years. So next year is the 150th anniversary. Probably will have them. If you want to get a pair, they should be available next year. You heard it first on this channel. Like, overall, I'm really glad that they made this jean. Of all of the other ones they've made, I'm super glad they made it. If you want one that's more wearable, then definitely get something that they've already made. They have it with slide cinches, shank buttons. It's something you can actually wear, and I think in the rigid it looks really good, especially next to a nice orange duck shirt. But hopefully next year they're going to make a more historically accurate pair. Is it something that is going to be interesting? Definitely. But you have to remember, you get these little details that you'll see on the Nap app, such as sewn-on buttons that just don't hold it. Poke cinches that I can talk forever about how I love it, but they're just not doing the job. This is a Smithsonian-worthy item that we don't actually have in the historical records. So we're really just reimagining it. And that kind of adds to the overall mystery of it being this more alluring product that you can never really obtain. Although maybe there really is a pair of 1873 waist overalls somewhere in a barn in California just waiting to be discovered, and we can rebase it on there. Like, you gotta find what Levi's fit you, and it could be just a pair of premium, it could be this one right here. Whatever it is, it looks good on your legs. This is where it all started. So for the true collectors, it's all about going back to this and enjoying everything in between. I'm Den. Thanks for watching. Be a subscriber. It really helps out the channel. You're the best audience out on YouTube. Happy 501 Day, everybody.